got lady. We're going to see.
Oh, all right.
Just get my timer here. All right, we'll transition from Ward 6. We get the photographer back from the restroom. So we're switching gears now to at-large candidates, people who would represent not only Ward 6, but the city at large. Will follow the same format, starting in alphabetical order, and my far left with Noel. I want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to speak, and we have time for Q&A afterwards. So I'm going to set my timer at 4 minutes and ask you to each, we'll just go down the row. We have some questions that have been submitted. Sandra Taylor will ask those at the end, and then we'll open it, and then there'll be time for mix and mingle afterwards. All right, Noel, you're up. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank the Marina Bay Point. I want to thank the Marina Bay Point Condominium Council for hosting this event tonight. My name is Noel Dibona. I'm currently one of the city councilors at large. There's 3 of us up there right now, and Joe Finn's vacating, and that's why you see a swarm of people running for the open seat. I grew up here in the Quincy, Massachusetts, here in Quincy Point, over by the old Privetti's, if everybody knows where that is, and I currently live in Marymount now with my wife, Neve, and our 3 children, Tyler, Aiden, and Nora. We're a very young family starting out here in the city. Just a little brief history, and we can get into Q&A in a little while, but I want to just talk a little bit about how I became a city councilor at large. You know, I'm really more of a community activist and started out as an activist, coaching little kids football for the last 7 years, the Quincy Point Panthers, and being part of the Sons of the American Legion at Morissette Post 294, being a junior vice commander over there for the last 6 years. We do the Flags for Veterans Island on Fort Square. You know, I started my career really as a community activist, and I was the Ward 2 Civic Association president as well in 2013. I started also on the Park and Recreation Board for 2 years as a board member, and then I became a school committee member, and now here I am as a counselor at large. So that was my road to where becoming a politician. Why I wanted to be a counselor? I wanted to continue to live in the city of Quincy and advocate for the right funding, resources, and make Quincy a nice place to live, a safe place to live. Some of the most important things for me is education, public safety, and right now with all the stuff going on is infrastructure improvements. Those are the top tiers for me that I look at when I'm making decisions up there. And I realize that that is important to make Quincy a great place to live. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the city today, and we'll get into the questions, but that's a little overview of myself. One thing that I pride myself on is I have a perfect attendance up at the city council. I've not missed one meeting. I always continuously host summer office hours and office hours at the city council inside the city hall for anyone that wanted to come in and speak face to face. I continuously am out in the public eye all the time. My little boy goes to Jack and Jill next door here, little Aiden, the middle boy, and my other boy Tyler went to Jack and Jill right next door. There isn't an area of the city that I'm not a part of, and being part of other neighborhood associations. An at-large council is a little different than a ward councilor. We're citywide, and I'm citywide, so I try to be in all neighborhoods and all associations and be a part of that neighborhood and find out what is the issue that's going on in those particular neighborhoods and make a macro approach on how do we mitigate or how do we deal with some of these issues on a citywide level. And that's basically what an at-large counselor does, as well as work with ward counselors on issues that they want to bring you in on and what affects the whole entire city. With that being said, I'm going to give it to my colleague on the council as well, Margaret Laforest. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, I think there's a whole lot of here. So good evening, my name is Margaret Laforest. I have represented Ward 1 on the City Council for the last 8 years. I'm born and raised here in the city of Quincy on Houseneck waterfront. My mom is here in the audience. My mom's family's lived in Houseneck since 1891. My husband Jeff and I have 2 daughters, Kelsey and Krista. They're both in college. Kelsey's at Fairfield University, taking her CPA exam today, and Krista's right now, she's at the University of North Carolina, but right now she's out in Alaska. So we have a very busy family. I grew up in a family that's dedicated to service in our community. My mom was president of the Neighborhood Association, and I followed her in her footsteps, president of the Housing Community Council. I really found that if there was when my kids were younger, anything I can get involved in, PTO, neighborhood association, local nonprofits, community activism was also my path to elected office. Natural extension, running for elected office. So when I did take office, I really prided myself on what I thought was important to my constituents. It's communication and accessibility. It is important when you're that voice and you're that elected representative. People know where you are, how they can reach out to you. I have open office hours too. It's called 24/7, 365, my cell phone, Facebook, and email. I'm out there and I pride myself on my responsiveness to my constituents. People know they can come to me for help, and there's actually some here in this neighborhood who I've worked with on many issues. I submit, every month I do an e-newsletter to my ward constituents. And I let them know about projects that's happening. You can go to my website right now, margaretlaforest.com, and see my blog. You want to look at what's been happening in Ward 1 over the last 8 years, you can kind of get that summary and see the communication and outreach. I really feel for the city councilor, you're the people closest, you're the level of government closest to the people, you need communication accessibility. I welcome you, I'll be around at the end. If you want to sign up for my e-newsletter, my goal is to spread that out on a citywide scale. Some of the issues I've been particularly involved in are is this on? Is the coastal issues. So they call me the coastal counselor. I had my boat license before I had my car license. I had a skiff, I don't know, Mom, I was like 10, traveling around the Boston Harbor Islands. I think that our waterfront is one of the best assets in Quincy, and there's no need to go to the Cape. I know some of you whose doors I've knocked on, we share the appreciation of the nature around us, right? So you've seen the osprey and the egrets and the herons, and I start my every morning with some peaceful moment along the waterfront. The ferry was a great topic that we talked about. Traffic and parking are the worst issues in the city. We won't get too much into it. You really covered that with the Ward 6 councilors, but 4 stations under construction at the same time. We need a strong mitigation plan, and we do need permanent ferry service. What I just posted on my Facebook while I was listening to them was the Boston Harbor Now survey. So Boston Harbor Now is a nonprofit that connects a lot of the interests of Boston Harbor, whether it's the Boston Harbor Islands National Park area, the Friends of the Harbor Islands, the government agencies that are involved. And we're really trying to capture not just what's Quincy's ferry situation, but what's water transportation in general in the greater Boston area, right? Not only is it Quincy's problem with traffic coming through our city, we have the entire South Shore commuting through twice a day. So we ask that you take that ferry survey. We want to hear, what is it that you want from ferry service? What do you want here from Quincy? What do you want specifically from Marina Bay? There's a lot of us, it's great to say, let's get ferry service coming out of Marina Bay. That would be convenient for me to go to the airport, for me to go to dinner in Boston, or to commute in Boston. But what does that impact for you, the residents of Marina Bay? Your voice needs to be heard. 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So I think we'll leave that to the other coastal issue I think is really important. In particular, impacted a lot of you is the flood map issue. When FEMA implemented new flood maps, that's a federal problem. God bless him, Brian McNamee says, call me when Squantum's underwater. Margaret didn't call you when Squantum was underwater. I educated myself, I went out and I became the expert, and I helped homeowners, and thousands of people are out of the flood map because of the appeal process, and we're able to work with you. I have it on my website right now, how to file a loan or get properties out. We've had a lot of discussion with some of these condo associations here. Respectfully, I ask for your consideration for one of your votes this election season. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start by thanking Rich and Judy, the Marina Bay Condo Association, my fellow colleagues and candidates, and all of you for taking your summer night to join us here. I'm Liang, and I'm currently one of your at-large city councilors here in the city. I'm proud to serve as an at-large councilor from my hometown. Quincy's an incredible place. This is something I knew when I first ran for office, but I've learned much more about that in these last 2 years. I'm constantly inspired by the hard work that goes into our city every day. From every neighborhood, every civic association, nonprofit organization, our friends and neighbors are committed to making our city thrive, and I'm proud to represent and serve the people of Quincy. 2 years ago, I ran on a pretty simple platform: to make our city government more accessible and transparent, and to engage more residents into the hard work at City Hall every day. And while I feel we've made progress on both these fronts, I believe we can still do more. We can still do better. Today, I'm running for re-election to the Quincy City Council because I know that I have more to contribute. I'm running because I want to build upon the progress that we've made. I'm running because I want to continue to be your voice, and together continue to fight for the future of our city. And I'm running today because I believe we all should expect more. We should expect more from our local government. We should expect more from our elected officials. We should expect more from our neighbors and from ourselves. And this is the standard that I hold myself to, and tonight I ask all of you to hold me to. Now in Quincy, we all come together. We work with others who may hold different opinions on the best way forward, but different paths are not necessarily wrong. Different paths to the same goals provide us with the richness of perspective and a wealth of opportunity to move our city forward. We do this because we understand that we're all in this together. And it's together that we're going to be able to make Quincy an even better place to live and to work and to raise a family. And this is something I personally experienced with my family growing up here and growing our business, and it's one of the reasons that inspires me to run for office. Now I can tell you that the people that I've met and worked with since getting elected all share in the same goals: to try and provide opportunities for everyone across the city and to be able to give back to the city and community that we all call home. These last 2 years have been an amazing experience. I've had the opportunity to give back to my city, to make a difference and to help others, and it's also been a tremendous honor and responsibility. I have and will continue to challenge myself every day to do better as your city councilor. I've also learned a lot about the city, the unique neighborhoods, the specific issues and challenges that we're facing, and about myself. And I know that I have more to contribute. I know that I want you to continue to expect more of me, and that I want to do more for you. I want to continue to be your voice for our city and our neighborhoods, and I humbly and respectfully ask for your support and your vote to my re-election to the City Council. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mahoney. I too want to thank the association for inviting us out tonight. I obviously think running for office is a very important thing, but I'd like to tell you a little bit of my journey on how I got to run for office. My husband Kevin and I will be married 27 years this year. I found it to be a privilege to be able to come and live in Quincy again when we got married, living in my great-grandparents' house in West Quincy. They were the Ferreters from Valley Ferreterdingle, and they lived on a peninsula, yet we live up in West Quincy in the high hills. So I think we should be in Swanham, but I'll take that up another day with them someday. Josie and Kate were my granddaughters. I used to go visit them every Tuesday for half-day visits from school, and they worked at the telephone company. They were very, very inspirational women. I didn't realize how inspirational they were until as I got older. They worked for the telephone company, and I knew they helped people in my neighborhood get through the Great Depression. But what I didn't know until I ran for school committee, and the reason why I ran for school committee was because of my husband and I discussing whether or not we could stay in Quincy to raise our children. My sister lived in Norwell, and we were thinking about moving from Quincy. But I had this huge privilege of living down the street from my parents, Joseph and Mary Mulligan. And the next thing I knew, not because I dreamed of it, I was running for Quincy politics. I was running for school committee. And the reason why I was running for school committee was because, like many of you in the audience, I was a parent and a taxpayer, and when I would call my city officials and ask them a question, they would tell me, that's what you wanted. And I thought, how do they know what I wanted? They never asked me. So I made it my journey to go out and ask everybody what they wanted for the schools. And 12 years later, I'm doing the same thing, a journey across the city of Quincy, asking everybody that I meet, and many of you in the audience tonight, I've been at your doors, and the first thing I ask you is, after I tell you I'm Mahoney, is, what do you think's working, and what do you think we need to pay attention to so I can be your representative? Well, let me tell you, I've learned a lot, like I always do when I walk around the city. I've walked in all wards, all precincts, and I've been told many things, but I can tell you, there is a love for this city that goes really deep. Whether you are a generational family that's lived here like myself, fourth generation, third and to live in the house, my kids are the fifth, or you're new to the city of Quincy, like my mom, married 67 years, but she's still not from Quincy. But what I can tell you is, whether you're new or if you lived here forever, the questions are deep and the concerns are real, but the love is there too. The concerns I heard for the top 3 going throughout this city, I'll say top 4, would be traffic and road conditions. We talked about traffic and we talked about the ferry, we talked about a lot of things down here. The other thing is the development, and there's a development going on in every inch of our city. Now, nobody's anti-development. The concern isn't that we don't want development. The concern is that there's 4,500 apartments going to be online in the next 2 years, from the start of development until 2 years from now. The concern is, as we all know, because I think there's a few in the audience that might be with me, the economy goes up and down. When the economy goes down, people are very nervous about what's going to happen to those apartments that we're putting online. Taxes. Single-family homeowners, they're failing it. And my parents, 87 and 90 years old, still living in the homestead at 64 Shelman Street, they're failing it. The fixed-income families, new families to the city of Quincy that we want to have roots and stay, much like my husband and I, 27 years, 23 years in our house, want to make sure those families stay. We're the old people when you put them. The other thing, it's not in the top 3, but it's a top concern. We talk a lot about economic development, and we talk a lot about storefronts, but we don't have much of it going on in Quincy, and we need double and triple down for that. So I'm Ann Mahoney. I'm a candidate for council at large. I love the city of Quincy, and I never dreamed I'd run for office, but I hope you too will help me become your next councilor at large by giving me 1 of your 3 votes. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Raymondi. Thank you for the invitation to be with you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for coming. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Quincy, born and raised right here, graduate of the Quincy Public Schools, Holy Cross College, and Boston College Law School. I spent 2 years on the Quincy School Committee, 2 years as its vice chair, where I led the effort to increase our academic and technological programs. I led the effort to rebuild and remodel most of our schools at that particular time, and to maintain and keep our class sizes down. As a member of the City Council, 2 years as its president, I wrote the hotel motel tax. That's a landmark piece of legislation that has resulted in $15 million coming into our city, earmarked for improvement of public parks, playgrounds, historical preservation. And some of the questions here tonight about the ferry, and it was almost given up that the city would not have any ability to fund things like that. The way I wrote the ordinance, 85% went to those earmarked open space, public park recreational improvements, but 15% went to tourism, of which the ferry would be considered part of that. And the grant application was made to the Commonwealth. The adjoining money from the city of Quincy to match came from the hotel motel tax. We brought in $15 million. So that's a creative way of finding a problem to resolve, which is improvement of our parks, playgrounds, open space acquisition, in your case, providing funds for a pilot ferry program, but no burden on the taxpayer. These were funds that were paid for visitors to our city. As a former prosecutor and public defender, I know the impacts that crime has on individuals, families, and communities, and that's why I wrote that's why I wrote the community policing ordinance. That's an ordinance that targets communities in areas within our city that may generate crime. It's a proactive approach with the result that we're a safer city. Every neighborhood in Quincy should be a safe city to raise a family. Growing up in Quincy, I learned the importance of public works. And I learned that from my dad, who was a public works employee. And for the past 6 years, it has been my great honor to serve as your Commissioner of Public Works. And I brought my experience and my education and my management goals to the Department of Public Works. And over that 6-year period, when I left in 2016, the prior year in 2016, we received a number of awards from the Department of Environmental Protection. We received the Stormwater Committee Award and received a Clean Action Award for excellence in management and being proactive within the public works industry. Some of the seniors in our community, and some of you folks may either be experiencing this yourselves or have others that you may know, are house rich and cash poor. And I've had tremendous sympathy for the seniors of our community. And that's why I wrote the Senior Workers Abatement Program. We call it the SWAT program. The city gets the benefit of a senior work ethic and product, and the city pays that particular senior citizen sufficient amount of money to offset a portion of the real estate tax bill. So you can understand, throughout my public career has been one of commitment to the well-being of every resident within the city, finding innovative, creative solutions to problems that don't necessarily involve burdening taxpayers. I will be a steady hand on the city council for a change of city. Again, I thank you for your time. The primary day is September 12th. I appreciate your voting consideration. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Tougas. I got involved after I sort of woke up on 9/11, and activists once said, "You don't do politics, politics will continue to do you." So I started getting involved and learning the issues, and it started for me on more of a state level, but also locally. I joined my local RTC, and I basically became chair of my ward. And on the state level, I've worked on helping out 4 U.S. Senate candidates, a couple state Senate candidates, and ballot issues. Now, if you're looking to say, okay, what can this guy do for me? Basically, I'm more of the John F. Kennedy school, what can you do for government? What can you do for your country, rather, that's important. So I got involved, and basically I got signatures for statewide ballot initiatives. And one of them was the gas tax. And basically they tied the consumer price index to the gas tax, so one would raise the other continuously without limit. And I got about 4,000 signatures, and the Massachusetts voters voted to vote that away. So everybody in this room, when you go to the grocery store, I saved you money by every time you buy at the grocery store. So that's kind of what I've done for you. I worked on other ballot initiatives. I started one of my own recently to end tolling in Massachusetts, because they're going to put the pike on the gantries on Route 3, on 93, 128, Route 2. It's Senate Bill S. 1959. And so I did that. Basically, I've been at large. I've been working for you already. So, and I currently am working for you. We'll see what the Attorney General does with this ballot petition I submitted. But basically, I'm someone who believes that the rights of the individual are more important than the rights of the collective, which is what our country is founded on. I believe that when you want a chicken in every pot, when you want bigger government, what does that mean? It means more taxes. And so the opposite is true. If you want less taxes, you've got to calm it down, but there is a balance. And I worked on that. I've been a software engineer for 30 years. Lived half my life in Quincy. And I have my name on a patent. I developed surgery over the internet. And I worked for a job shop for the last 10 years, a medical device, doing software. And basically, we're given a job that I know nothing about, and I do it, and we move on to the next thing. And I believe I can help Quincy. I worked on the Sanctuary City issue. When that issue came up, I brought in signs, and there weren't any signs. And basically, when they saw all the signs of the opposition, they basically voted it down. And I was there to help out, because basically I've been working more on a state level, but I've gotten more local with that issue. And so I decided to run for city council. And I thank you very much. Please vote for me, and you have a nice evening. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stanley Fang Xiao. I'm running for city councilor at large. I was born in Guangdong, China. When I was 18 years old, I finished 10th grade in China. Then I immigrated to United States of America. I continued my education in Charlestown High School. Then I went to Boston College for computer science. And then I go back to Quincy College for law enforcement. I learned a lot and I experiment a lot. I get the best part from American. I have the best part from Chinese. And I lived in Quincy for 14 years. I was helping senior in O'Brien Tower. They loved me. They asked me to run for city councilor. I run for city councilor because I think I like to rebuild Quincy. I find there's many things to go on, many things to rebuild. I want to plan forward to Quincy, make our Quincy city to be forward city. And I'm planning to plan all the forward on the roadside and let all outsiders come to Quincy have impressive memory. Also, I'm going to help the senior people. They feel bored and they feel discomfort. I want to help them. I want to create more facility for the senior people and gather them together to do exercise, to play chess, to socialize, and make them happy. They deserve a happy life in their senior age. Also, I want to build more public playground in our city, that our kids and people can come out more and to have fun, have sunshine. Also, I want our city provide more facility for volunteer worker. I want the public agent need to take care of them, take responsibility to train them, help them to find a job. And I feel like everybody can have something to do with their life, and I will create more jobs for them, for our city to continue to pursue their goals. I want everybody to have something to do in their life, have a role to play in their life. I wish you can vote for me. I can change the Quincy city. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I got this in the right place? You can hear me? Okay. We only have 3 written questions, and they're basically economic. Since there are a number of you, I would wish that you would keep your answer as brief as you possibly can. You have touched on a few of these, but I believe we owe it to the people who submitted the questions to ask them directly. This is for all candidates. Would you approve a real estate tax deduction for seniors who live in their own homes? They're aware of circuit breaker, but many seniors do not qualify for this. Most of us are on a fixed income and need help. Why don't we start in the middle and go that way, just to do something different? Ann.
Okay. So I believe that, do you want me to use the microphone? Okay, I just want to make sure I can be here. I'm sorry. No, I apologize. I think my voice can carry, but, so this is a question that was asked at the doors a lot, and 2 years ago I brought it up too when I was running for mayor. So a long-term residential tax rebate can happen. It's happened in other communities. Somerville, Boston, Cambridge, they all do it. The formula, there is a formula and we have to look at it. And there's ways that we need to do it. I know the city council looked at it, the mayor said it was too complicated. It is not too complicated. Not much is too complicated. You just have to know how to work the finances to do it. So I do believe that we have to start taking a look at that because long-term residents, seniors in particular, like I mentioned, my parents, 87 and 90-year-olds, they're finding it very difficult. But even younger families, people that have been here, myself, 22 years in the city of Quincy, a tax-paying resident in the city of Quincy. We have a city right now that's turning upside down. We're going to end up having a lot of apartments coming into the city, and our single-family homeowners are no longer going to be that power. We need to make sure we're keeping people in their homes, keeping people wanting to be residents in the city of Quincy, and to do that we have to follow the lead of other communities who did do that, with their development they're having, and bring in that formula and give a tax break back to our citizens. A real tax break, not one that we're asking you to come out and actually do labor.
Yeah.
Could you pass the,
This one?
yeah, give it to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a great question, and I'm really excited to be able to chat with you folks on it. So for residential tax exemption, in the state of Massachusetts right now, they just increased the limit to 35% for owner-occupied residential tax exemptions. Whoever asked the question is right. We don't have it currently in the city of Quincy, and like Ann mentioned, other cities and towns in Massachusetts have exercised that right, and Boston recently moved their residential tax exemption up to 35% for the owners of, for homeowners in Boston. So for that to happen here in the city, right now we have about a $300 million budget, and let's say if we took every homeowner who owned their property and gave them the maximum of 35% exemption, there's going to be a certain amount of money then in our budget that we don't have for city services that are necessary, such as our fire department, our police department, our school committee. So we do have to find a way to make up that difference while still allowing for owners of their homes to have that exemption. And I believe what we can do, I used to work for insurance, and if you owned a property, whether it was single family, 2-family, or 3-family, but you rented it out, we insured it as commercial property. Here in Massachusetts, though, so long as it's considered a dwelling, it's not commercial, it's residential. So they're paying the residential tax rate similar to us who own a single-family home. So what we can do, and this is something I've been talking to the assessor's office and some other folks who do real estate law to try to, like Ann was saying, figure out that balance so that we can reach our city's budget for city services while also giving us close to that maximum of 35% exemption, is to make a balance. So if you own your home and you live in your home, and let's say maybe you rent one unit out, you don't get as high of an exemption. If you don't live in your home at all, but you rent it out completely, then you don't get the exemption. And over time, we can build to that so that residents will start off with maybe 10% exemption, and it'll be made up on the commercial side, and so on and so forth until we can reach that max, and we can receive that benefit back to us. Right now, the commercial tax base is very low, and as residents, we're carrying that burden. We need to move in that direction of shifting that so that we're no longer carrying the burden for the majority of the budget.
Could you
Thank
pass
you.
that
Yeah, of
on to
course.
Margaret,
Thanks.
please?
Thank you. So I'm going to be very specific to what the question was, the senior tax abatement or exemption for long-term residents. There's actually legislation in an ordinance right now authored by Councilor Palmucci pending before the City Council. This is something that we will have on the docket probably in the fall. I chair the ordinance committee. One thing you can know about me is I do my homework. This is also like being a fighter pilot in the City Council, and the issue is right in front of you, you're delving right into it. This is something we do have on the docket. We are looking at alternatives to reduce the property taxes of the seniors in the neighborhood. I have a relative of mine, she's 100 years old, you might have seen it in the Patriot Ledger last week. She lives in her own home. It is so important to keep seniors in their own homes. It's the quality of life in the neighborhood. Quincy has a lot of us who have lived here forever, and it's the only place we'll ever live. We love living in our own homes, we want to be in our neighborhoods, and we want to work to make housing affordable for our seniors. I also serve on the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So stay tuned to the fall for more information on this topic.
Thank you. Just to go a little different path than the three just said, we're looking at this at the City Council level right now. If you're going to make a tax abatement, that funding has to come from somewhere. So where do you get that funding from? Maybe we look at something like the new buildings that are being structured. They're 50 units or more. Also, with the 40B affordable housing 10% that they have already set up, maybe there's a 1% to a 3% fund that comes out of those buildings that are being built over 50 units. That fund goes into a tax abatement. Anybody over the age of 65 with some type of criteria of a 5 or 10 year living in that household will qualify for this tax abatement whether you make a certain amount of income, doesn't matter, you're over the age of 65, that's where the funding has to come from. So you have to pick and choose where you're going to get this funding from. You just can't say, well, let's do a tax abatement. Well, where's the funding going to come from? So let's find out where do we go after this. With all the construction and all the condominiums and the housing and the apartment units coming in, that's where you can get the funding from. Also, to piggyback on that, we also need to fund our roads. So I'm also looking at 1 to 2% for funding for roads. Thank you.
Okay, Dan?
Thank you. As you know, in my opening remarks, I mentioned that many seniors within our community are house rich and cash poor. I have tremendous sympathy for all those individuals. When I was on the city council, I represented somewhat of an economically challenged community, and many folks that I represented were seniors holding on to their homes. And that's why the Senior Workers Abatement Program needs to be expanded. It's a wonderful program. Many folks across the entire city have benefited from that. It's something that we can do. We have done it. I wrote it. We need to have more funding for that. And all these other programs that the other candidates have pronounced, I'm willing to take a look at all of that, because the city of Quincy is changing, and we all know that. But the one element of that society that we cannot let down are the seniors of our community who have really built Quincy to the point of where it is today. So whether it's the workers program, whether it's whether it's a water sewer bill relief, whether it's some sort of a tax relief, whether it's to have some of this development do more to assist our seniors, those folks who are living within the city, as we welcome newcomers, to allow them to remain within their homes. But I think we all share the concern that the question has.
Thanks, Dan. Could you pass that on?
They have senior citizen discounts at restaurants, don't they? That is the choice that is done by the restaurant, and the people come there who buy, who are not senior citizens, and they're fine with the cost redistribution. That is their vote. When it comes to taxes, I think we should have representation. We should not have taxation without representation. I think that there should be more input than just the voting for city councilors. I think we should hear from more residents on like an internet polling thing or whatever that we want to do. Technology has gotten us that far, and that's what I would do. But I'm actually for that. I thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. I think seniors' tax shall be released from government, and I believe we should build more public housing, build more senior housing to take good care of them. Thank you.
All right, we have another question, and again, I hope we can be brief. I know this was, do I have it close enough?
Turn it.
Okay? All right. This has to do with flood insurance, which was touched upon, but I think we deserve the person who asked us the respect of asking this question. Everybody is not well off. The flood insurance costs continue to increase yearly. People are being forced to move. This is quite unfair. Do not say nothing can be done. Hard work and a strong desire to do what is right can work wonders. Please have this removed. Okay, we'll give you the start.
Okay. Well, we have a little hurricane that's going on right now. And as you know, FEMA's thinking about how to scam everybody in this next tier. And that's just what everything happened in this last Sandy hurricane. We all got scammed, figured out at a national level, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to make up for this loss? And that's what they did. They went after homes that weren't in the flood zone and they remapped it. And now we're in a situation where, and I know Margaret Laforest here from Ward 1 is we're working extensively on this. The bottom line is this type of fund has to come from somewhere. There's going to be a major loss in Texas. There's a major loss in New Orleans. Somebody's got to pick up the tab somewhere. We just talked about this on the other end with the tax abatement. Where is this funding going to come from? Who do we tax? Where do we go after this and find this type of funding? And the FEMA flood maps, if you're not a city that's going to fight this, they're going to roll right over you. And that's just what happened in some of the other municipalities. But Quincy was a city that fought this, and what we got to continue is be on the forefront. When the meetings come, be at them and be against this. Thank you.
I get the same time limit as everyone on this one. I thought I should get some bonus time. So this is the hot topic in Ward 1. The majority of the city's coastline, 27 miles of coastline, the majority is in Ward 1. I'll tell you, when these maps were updated twice while I was in office, the first time when they came through, it was we got information at the very end. FEMA gave me some information, and they said, look out, keep your eyes and ears open. I am a nerd. I read the back of the Patriot Ledger. There's a lot of information in there, public notices, and that's where I was finding some of my FEMA information because they're required to publish it. It's about educating yourself, knowing where to do your homework, and how to help people. Right now, the city of Quincy is working to be one of the top communities for community rating system. So what can we do to reduce the cost of your flood insurance? Right now, the city of Quincy qualifies for a 10% discount, and we're looking to get to be the #2 community in the Commonwealth to hit that 15% mark. How are we doing that? It's about our due diligence. What is it that we're doing when people are building in the floodplain? Are we holding them to the standards? Do you know that if you're going to improve your structure more than 50% of the value, you must make it become FEMA compliant. So there's a lot, and there's nothing that whatever this time limit can do. Anybody that wants to talk FEMA, there's a ton of information on my website. I will nerd out and talk with you extensively. I will work to get your house out of the floodplain. This has been an issue that's impacting so many in the city of Quincy, and it's one that I've fought the hardest for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as a resident, I right up the street from Wollaston Beach. This is an issue that I'm looking at every year as we renew our homeowners insurance, and we're looking at the cost of that because I'm actually right out of the flood zone, but down at the end of my street, they are in the flood zone. And so this is something that my parents and I have always looked at to say, you know, what year is that going to change where I then become part of the flood zone where I then have to look into insurance, and am I paying $300 in premium or am I paying $5,000 in premium? So as the maps are consistently changing, like my colleague Noel Dibona said, Council Laforest has been on top of making sure that all of us are engaged in that conversation, and that citywide we're able to communicate this news and the new updated maps as quickly as possible to the residents in the neighborhoods. It's not just in Ward 1, we see it here in Ward 6 as well, also in Ward 5. There's a lot of residents that every year when their insurance renews or their homeowner's insurance renews or their mortgage comes up, that they're asking themselves, do I have to go ahead and submit another $5,000 premium, or in 2 months am I going to be out of that where I don't need it? And so we need to continue that communication from the federal delegation with folks like Congressman Lynch down to the local level with your city councilors and also to the residents so that we can continue that moving forward and make sure that we have the most up-to-date information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the things I have is a long memory. It might be because I'm Irish. So when the FEMA flood maps first came around, that's the second 2 times before, the city of Quincy was kind of caught off guard. Even the mayor said he needed a mulligan. Well, I'm a mulligan. I would have been happy to tell him that we have flooding issues in the city of Quincy, and we should have teamed up with the South Shore to make sure that we didn't have to get into the situation we were in. But instead, we had to invest a lot of money in the city of Quincy to get to the point where we are now. The situation is very simple. It's not just the coastal communities. Ward 4, where I am landlocked to the lower levels, those neighborhoods are also having to have FEMA insurance, the flood insurance. And we have to actually be careful about where we're developing and how we're developing and taking those things into consideration. Because when we're developing, and that's an important thing, it's called disaster. We need to make sure we're taking the development and making sure it's not creating more low-level flood areas, so it's pushing more people into the flood zone. Think of it like a sponge. If the sponge is full with water and you press it down, where's the water going to go? It's going to go into your backyard, and guess what you are in? You are now in the FEMA flood map. So we need to be careful. We have responsibility here in the city of Quincy, and we also have to make sure that our state and our federal government is actually taking care of us, and we push back on FEMA because we don't need more flood insurance. We need to make sure we're taking care of us here.
I believe we should taking good care of people. When people cannot afford the insurance, we shall giving them a discount and provide. Government need to provide some fund for them. Thank you.
I agree with the fact that if you have a lower income, you should also be helped out. But basically, what governments do is that they get more of what you got and they keep raising the rates by, what do? They keep raising the flood limits. And the idea is this needs pushback against. I am definitely for smaller government. I would like to see privatization of insurance companies and competition, which is what kept rates low. But that being said, all we can do is to have discounts for people with lower incomes, and that's basically it.
I've been a victim of flooding myself. I live by the town brook, and on many occasions years ago, the town brook would discharge, and the town brook would wind up in my basement. So I have tremendous empathy for those individuals who suffer from flood conditions. And I don't want to let this night go by, or this particular topic go by, without mentioning the fact that in this community, in the Northeast, we have experienced significant and severe weather. Blizzard of 1978, significant hurricanes over our period of time. A few years ago, we had historic snowfalls. But it has to be heart-wrenching for each and every one of us to watch what's happening in Houston and all across Texas, that devastation, 50 inches of rain. So I know that you've joined with me and indicated that our hearts and thoughts go out to all those fellow Americans. The community rating system is something that I work very hard on as the Commissioner of Public Works. And what that does, that reduces your flood insurance. And we do that by infrastructure improvements, and we have built 2 pump stations. We need to continue to do that. We need to continue to repair and reconstruct our catch basins. So infrastructure improvement in and of itself is terrific, but it also helps this particular matter of reducing our flood insurance.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. We have one final question from an audience member. It's also economic. What plans to balance the needs of the taxpayers versus developers and the perks of the developers? Okay, let's start. We'll start down.
Okay. I came into office a year and a half ago when the west of Chestnut was already being built in the downtown. The downtown development was going to be, and is going to be, our economic engine. Being on the city council, we're at the saturation point of the apartments. At this point in tier, I'm looking forward to commercial-based real estate, commercial in the downtown. We've got enough, we get the Hancock lot built, 730 parking spots, and then we go from there for the other parcels to be commercial-based. But I'm looking for that tier to help out the residential taxpayer. That's the vision that I see in doing that, and coming into a variable of this was the downtown's vision to start with. I'm in the mix right now. That's why I ran for city councilor at large, to be part of the mix. And we'd have to also revitalize Wallaston Center. Wallaston Center has been, there's boards up on one of the structures next to the China there. We need to revitalize Wallaston Center as well throughout the city of Quincy. So I'm looking for commercial-based to help out our residential taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. So 80% of our property tax revenue comes from residential, 20% from commercial existing. How many of you grew up in the city of Quincy? Okay, I grew up in Quincy, and I have great memories of going to Child World and Remix and Coleman's and movie theater downtown. So I told you earlier, my kids are in college and they've never had that experience. We need a downtown that operates for us. We need to meet the needs of us within our municipality here in downtown Quincy. The City Council will be working on legislation, a land disposition agreement for downtown this fall. Fox Rock Properties is going to develop 1 million square feet of commercial space. We're talking about a downtown that has deteriorated for decades, and now is the time to make downtown function. I brought my kids on a field trip. I told you I'd do my homework. When Streetworks was going to be working in Quincy, we went on down to the Blueback Square, something they developed. When I was in DC, I brought my kids to Bethesda Row, another property they developed, and my kids wanted to see what it is, what can we do with downtown. It is so important. We talked so many about Quincy people committing here to the city of Quincy. We need to update and revitalize our downtown for the future generations of the city of Quincy. We are finally seeing that come to reality. I look forward to the discussion, but the commercial and the mixed use, just like you have the success of that here at Marina Bay, needs to happen in our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. So as my fellow colleague said, we are looking at 1 million square feet of strictly commercial development in our downtown this coming fall, which is great, and we need to see more of that. You know, if you really look at the city as a whole, if you look at the areas like the downtown or Wollaston or Norfolk Downs, You know, those are sort of the commercialized areas that we want to continue to focus on developing, not the neighborhoods with those little hubs that we have down Hancock Street. And if you look at the buildings that are up now, they're residential on top and retail on their first floor. And I can tell you, you know, my family owns 6 restaurants in the city. That first floor retail, it's a great tax revenue into the city, but it's not much. 5,000 square feet is not much of commercial development if you look at it. So we need more buildings like that 1 million square foot, strictly commercial building to offset our base. If we continue to develop the way that we are with residential on top and 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet on that first floor, it's not going to make that impact that we need as residents here in this city. So moving forward, that's something I will advocate for, is that if we continue developing, it has to be commercial development. We need to increase that so that, again, it offsets our residential tax burden. Thank you.
So I agree with my colleagues that are talking about this. And we talked about a little bit, Ward 6 talked a little bit about the ferry and tourism. And we talked about, well, where would we get the money if the city of Quincy was going to invest in it? Well, tourism is a no-brainer, and if we actually looked at some of the things that we're doing in the city of Quincy and maybe leveled them off and said, is it really necessary to do a $10 million project in one side of the city that's only going to take care of one half of the city and one peninsula? Maybe put the $10 million down here and actually put a ferry system together and bring tourism into our city, which will bring economic development into our city. And by being able to do that, we can bring resources into our city. We have storefronts that are empty. We need to actually go out and market the city of Quincy and start bringing in the types of businesses that we want, not just restaurants, but real storefronts that people can go to. We also have to let people know, like maybe Mass General, hey, we have a hospital and we're having a development that's coming up here, and Cambridge is, oh Christ, why don't we bring in some of those incubator research labs right here to Quincy Center? But to do that, we can't just sit here and wait. That's what we do in Quincy the best. We wait, we build it, and they will come. Have they come? We need to actually go out and bring it into the city of Quincy. We need to market our city. We need to let people know what our resources are. We need to create the resources that we don't have. The ferry is something that we need to have, because if we have that, we can not only get our people to work in Boston, but we can bring visitors from Boston to Quincy, and they won't be coming by car. They'll be coming by boat, and we can pick them up with our trolleys and bring them around, and they will shop at the storefronts that we bring into. And guess what we have? We have economic development. And guess what you have? You then have a tax rebate, because we're bringing that in, it's offsetting your taxes. We need to do that, and we need to do it soon. Thank you.
In all my years as a city councilor, I was known as the city councilor who would ask the questions that you folks would want to ask, and got answers to questions that some of the city councils were not able to ask. One of the things that is missing in this discussion is fiscal responsibility. It's one thing to shift the tax burden perhaps from residential to commercial and more money comes in, but what do you do with that revenue? So part of my responsibility as a council at large is to scrutinize how we spend money. The other aspect that I want to talk about is that what I talked about earlier, the hotel motel tax, that's a way of reducing the burden on homeowners, getting the job done with respect to public park improvements and historical preservation, 15% tourism, without impacting the taxpayer at all. So that's the innovation, creativity that I bring to this race. We had an issue that parks, playgrounds never got priority, and perhaps rightfully so. Schools, fire, police, public works. I wanted to make sure that Quincy is a city that continues to be a city that we can be proud of, to live, work, and play, and with that fund, we're able to do that. Is that Thank you.
Being at large in the state on 2 different board of directors, I've been around the state and I've seen long enough that towns that all look different are all starting to look the same, and that there's globalization going on, and who's paying for that? The taxpayer. And we need to stop that and get back to meeting the needs of the individual people and keeping the heritage of Quincy. That's one of the reasons why I love living here, is because it is the city of Adams, and I grew up here, and I really love this place. So that's what we've got to do, more single-family homes, things like that, rather than just industrialization. Thank you.
Quincy City right now is rapidly developed within 5 years or 10 years. We need to increase the commercial taxes, get the money to develop our city. And after 10 years, after 5 years, 10 years, we can release it. Thank you.
That would be the end of what we have formally, but does anybody have any specific question that they haven't asked that you would like to ask now? Okay, one hand, please.
I live in Wollaston. I grew up in North Quincy, but I walk down the street and there's nothing but restaurants. Really, probably 40 of them from Wollaston to North Quincy. Isn't there any set limit that you can't just have these, every little storefront has a little restaurant?
Who would like to answer that first?
So to understand what goes where, you have to understand zoning in the city of Quincy. So some of you own a single-family house. What goes there? A single-family house, its own residence A. And it's up to, the property owners have rights. We, the city, don't get to tell them who they can rent to, right? So if you own a commercial building along Hancock Street and you opt to rent it out to a nail salon and a restaurant, you're able to do so. We do not have governmental limits on what type of business. We have zoning regulations. I'll tell you, our first time in the city council, Councilor Raymondi was there with me, we recodified the city zoning regulations for the first time since the 1960s. It was 2009. I wasn't born in the 1960s, and that's what we were developing our zoning regulations on. So just to kind of be clear, I think people say, why is the city putting in more nail salons? The city doesn't put in the nail salons. It's what's driving the market in the local market.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I know that these people who have been gracious enough to spend their time with us tonight have agreed to stay, and perhaps you might want to spend a few minutes talking to individuals and get their answers to any specific question you didn't want to ask publicly. And I guess on behalf of Judy and Rich and myself, who helped to organize this, we would like to thank you all very much for coming, and we hope that you would be amenable to doing something like this again in the future. Thank you very much.